Hi, so today I wanted to talk to you about a book that I try to read, well, every time I have a new project. I try to at least read it once every couple of years. Actually, I think it's been 3 years since the last time I read it. This book is called The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing, and it's by Al Reese and Jack Trout. And it's a classic by now. It was written back in when? 1993. But it does have these 22 immutable laws, which they pretty much are immutable laws of marketing. And they've been acknowledged by many people many times. I think if you look up any books of marketing, the top 10, top 5, this will be included among them. And so I think it's very useful. So I just recently reread it, and so I wanted to briefly talk about it. And so what the book does is it basically just goes through all these 22 immutable laws, and then it gives examples of each. And so what I try to do is for each law, I'll have a couple notes, and then I'll write down how I can apply this for myself and for what I'm trying to do. And so I highly recommend doing that same thing. And yeah, it goes through, and its laws, they're called the law of leadership, law of perception, law of focus, law of line extension, law of division. And I mean, they have these names, obviously, they explain them when they go through. I mean, yeah, let's just take a couple examples here. You have the law of opposite, I guess. I wrote law of opposite in my notes. And so yeah, this one says basically that if you're number 2, so what I wrote here in my notes is, if you're number 2, your position depends on the leader. So you should be different from the leader. And an example is that Pepsi targets the younger generation, because Coca-Cola is established amongst people who've been drinking it all their lives and all their parents' lives, etc. So Pepsi decided, okay, rather than trying to be like them, we can acknowledge that they have that, and let's be the opposite, right? And actually, this reminded me of another one, the law of the ladder. And it's great because a lot of these laws, yeah, they tie into each other, and so you can see how to use them in different scenarios, etc., etc. The law of the ladder basically means to accept that there is a ladder. I have these numbered. I think they're the right numbers. So law of the opposite was law number 9. Law of the ladder is law number 7. And the law of the ladder basically says to acknowledge that there is a ladder. The example we have here is that Avis is a car rental company, and Hertz it was the first entrant, and it's always been acknowledged by most people as the first brand name that comes to mind when you think about car rental companies. So Avis, rather than trying to compete directly with them, it acknowledged that ladder, and its whole slogan, its advertising slogan was, "We're number 2, so we try harder." And this worked wonders for them, and it boosted them up. In fact, I think after a while it made them become number 1, which they kept quiet because this was working so well for them. Another interesting example was 7-Up, which that I have here. Basically, 7-Up was number 2 in the lemon lime market, which meant that Sprite was number 1 and 7-Up was number 2. And what it did was then it called itself a cola and went to compete rather than the lemon lime market, where it acknowledged that ladder and said that it would be number 2 because it came after Sprite. It decided to become a cola, and it marketed itself as a cola. And what happened? It became number 3 after Coke, Pepsi, and then 7-Up. However, being number 3 in the cola market is a lot better than being number 2 in the lemon lime market, and so its sales went up. And in fact, it became higher than Sprite. It was Coke, Pepsi, 7-Up. And so anyway, there are a lot of interesting examples, and the interesting thing is, after each law, for me, I listen to the audio version, so after I listen to each law, I would stop the recording, and then I'd see how I can apply it to my business. And anytime I listen or read business books, I always try to take notes, because otherwise I'm not going to remember everything and be able to apply it. And so for each one of these laws, you have 22 opportunities here to take notes. And if you do listen to the audio version, by the way, it was only like an hour and a half long. Like, it's a pretty short book. It's a very short read, but it's really useful. And so I just highly recommend it. I'll have a link to it here below. I'll link to the Amazon, because in Amazon you can get the ebook, the normal book, and the audio version. It has links to everything. It's easier. I would definitely recommend reading it whenever you have a new project to do. And so if you're trying to market yourself out there, then absolutely you should be reading it and see how you can apply this to yourself. For example, you might have noticed that the name under these videos, Akahi, changed to Freelance Translator Tips. And that's because Akahi is the name I use for my incorporation. And basically when I incorporate it for my clients, etc., I use Akahi. But there's no reason to use it here because these videos are just freelance translation tips, right? That's all I do. And so it makes a lot more sense just to have it clearly spelled out there. And so anyway, I find that a lot of these are useful laws, and you can see, apply the law of the opposite. Maybe you can check out the top 10 people in your language combination, your field, and see what they do. And don't necessarily accept what they do as what should be done, but maybe say, hey, if they, if so-and-so is the leader and they do this way, I'll acknowledge that and I'll say I'm the opposite. Maybe they're really good at marketing themselves and bringing themselves out there. You can say, I'm not good at marketing, but I'm good at what I do. I'm good at my work, and here's a portfolio of everything I do. I don't know. This is just an example off the top of my head. But anyway, I find that a lot of these are extremely useful. Law of candor. If you admit a negative, then the negative statements are accepted as truth. Well, if you say something positive, people might think you're just marketing yourself, but anytime you say a negative, it's accepted as truth. So an example here is Smuckers. Smuckers, their slogan was, with a name like this, we must taste good. Give it a read or a listen, however you prefer, and check it out. Once again, it's a very short read and you'll find it very useful. And let me know if you find it useful. And that's about it. If you found this useful, please click like. That helps. For some reason, I've been told it helps, and so I should ask for them. And if you want more tips like this, then feel free to subscribe. I'm going to have more videos having to do with freelance translation and freelancing in general. So that's about it for now. Thanks. Bye.